mentioned how much Edmonton sucks for hobby shops? Well, if I haven't, now I have. This town sucks for hobby shops. There's a couple halfway decent ones, but they tend to cater mostly to RC, cars, planes, whatever. There's really not a lot of interest in this town for model building. The only hobby shop in this town that has any kind of decent model kit selection is called Hobby Wholesale. But they're about an hour away from me. Maybe 45 minutes to an hour away from where I live, so I don't get there very often. But I found myself there yesterday. I had to pick up some decal paper for a project I'm going to work on this weekend. And I've never used decal paper, so I didn't realize that I needed more than just the paper. And so I gotta go back this weekend, so fun. But I decided to take a look through through their collection of sci-fi stuff, which is woefully small, but they do carry a lot of AMT and Round 2 Star Trek stuff. And what did I find? I didn't even know this was being reissued. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, considering that Round 2 has been going through the entire backlog of Trek kits. But they reissued the classic Enterprise Bridge. Like I said, I had no idea this was even going to happen. But am I ever excited to see it? I remember building one of these when I was a little kid. I think I was probably about 10, maybe 11. And liking it a lot. But as you might notice from the little sticker on the front, they've gone back and done some work to this thing. It says includes all new figures and parts to build the entire bridge. The previous versions of this kit, the original version, which was released in probably the early 70s, had only Spock, Kirk, and Sulu figures. Though I suppose Sulu could be repurposed as Bones or whoever else, it just was marked as Sulu. And only had, I believe, about 3/4 of the bridge, actually, the wall panels for the bridge included. The side from the turbo lift door to the view screen was left open so you could see in. But fans would often buy 2 kits and just combine them and in order to have a complete bridge. And also to have extra figures to place around. But it's nice that this kit has finally been reissued with the proper number of figures, the proper number of bridge panels, and a few other new details that we'll take a look at when we actually crack this thing open. But I'm really eager about this thing. I remember liking the original kit when I was a kid, and it's been a while since I've really gone to town on a model. I may actually have to really give this some effort. So that said, let's take a look. As you can see, the box art is basically identical to the original release of this kit from the 70s. Right down to, you can see here, this is the side of the bridge that was left open on the original model. But it is also, the artwork is actually inaccurate in that it shows many more figures than were ever available in the original kit. But there is a sticker, as I mentioned. I still have the shrink wrap on, and this sticker is on the shrink wrap. It mentions all new figures and parts to build the complete bridge. Box sides have, I believe, the same basic box art as the original kit, but with some new color text here explaining, all the new figures, all the other new details. Other sides, basically all still original. Some history about the Enterprise, some basic schematics about the bridge kit. Box bottom is like most Round 2 kits. This is an actual build-up of the completed model. It talks a little bit about the changes that they've made, and also includes some of the co-cell models, and lets you see some of the new figures and who they can all be built as. I'm very excited that they did an Uhura, because, like I said, the previous version, it came with a kit that was marketed as Sulu, but you could technically just paint him as anybody, but you couldn't really make Sulu look like Uhura, not without a lot of effort. But so it's nice to finally have the complete bridge crew. It does say that it includes 10 different option heads, basically figures for as many as 10 characters. So with the 7 here, I'm a little anxious to see who the remaining ones are. But there's a little bit of colored text, some bio info about the ship, and the 5-year mission and whatnot. First up, we've got Kirk's command chair and maybe some railings. These might be actually steps leading down from the main deck down to the command, the little pit in the center. This is one of the walkway sections raised around the perimeter of the bridge. There's a bit of texture to it. I don't remember if the original kit had that texture, or if this is new for the reissue. But I really don't recall. I want to say that the original kit was smooth, so this might be new tooling. But it looks good. It's molded kind of like with a carpet texture. Very, very fine. Quite good. We got some more walkway parts. We've got the alcove for the turbo shaft. This is probably just a sidewall flanking the turbo shaft. Most of these parts I'll just blow through because most of them are probably pretty similar to one another. I've got a few parts that have come loose from their runners. This is the central pedestal where the bridge, where Kirk's command chair, I believe, which is based here, and the con and helm stations mount to the front, and this would plug into the back section of the bridge. First of the sidewall panels, I remember these little screens being a huge pain in the ass to place decals on. Like, oh my god, I gave up after about 3 or 4 panels because there were just so many, and anyone who has watched my videos for a long time knows how much I hate placing decals. We got some flash on the runner. That's to be expected considering the age of these parts. This would be the pedestal for Kirk's command chair, more floor parts, more... I'm going to go ahead and say that these are steps for the down to the lower level. More sidewall parts, more screens, more instrument panels, which are molded flat. That's kind of a bummer. I'm kind of hoping that some of the new tooling might be like raised, like switches, command, and whatnot for these surfaces. Because it does have, you know, quite a lot of other new details. In addition to the figures and additional sidewalls, I understand that Spock's station has the little viewer that he always would look into. So kind of a bummer that they wouldn't have bothered to add any like raised detail for control panels. If that's all just decals, it's going to be a bit of a bummer. More floor panels, same raised carpet texture as before. Got our main view screen. A little piece of me kind of wants to cut this out, maybe put an old iPod Touch behind it, so that I could have like a graphic that would change, like have a video clip that was, you know, scaled and framed correctly and have like a moving image. That'd be kind of cool. Got some ejector pin marks. That's actually a bit of a bummer, but that'd be easy to clean up. More bridge walls, more bridge floors. couple more loose parts. I'm being careful not to lose these after the experience I had losing that part of the Sprue Kit's Batman. Getting toward the end, we've got all the console chairs, mounts for all the railings. This is the bridge Helm console, which actually does have raised control panels, raised switches and buttons, which is a nice touch. I doesn't look like I don't recall seeing anything about that little flip up targeting scanner that Sulu used to use, being any of the additional parts, which is likewise with all the missing switches on the other parts is a drag. But there's still one more runner of parts. We'll take a look. We'll see. More steps, more mounts for steps. The rest of Kirk's bridge command chair and railings for the bridge perimeter. And finally, the last runner. This is all the figures. I'm guessing this is the only runner that's new, because the tooling on these figures looks a lot crisper. There's still a fair bit of flash, but you know, I'm not gonna fault a round 2 for that. Yeah, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bodies and 10 heads. So we've got, let's see, Uhura, Spock. I'm guessing this might be Yeoman Rand. McCoy, maybe? I can't tell who that is. Not to say the detail on the heads isn't good, the lighting is making it tough to see. I'm guessing this is Scotty, Kirk, a couple other faces I don't recognize. But yeah, the molding on the faces is really nice. I'm actually quite impressed. With a paint job, these would actually look fantastic. Compared to the vintage kit, the detail on those was just awful. Like, you could barely tell that Spock was Spock, except that you could kind of make out pointed ears. It was almost impossible to tell which head went with which figure. But yeah, the figures, they all look great. They have embossed detail for the Starfleet, or for the Enterprise logo. I always forget that the chevron symbol that got adopted by Starfleet actually started life just as the Enterprise's emblem. And it looks like I'm actually happy. It looks like it does have Sulu's targeting sensor. I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that's what this is, and Spock's scanner as well. So, now if only they had raised controls on all the bridge perimeter panels, then I'd really be excited. So we got our decal sheet. From what I read on the box, all of the markings have been completely redone, whereas on the old kit they were very generic, just kind of spacey themed. The control panels, I think, were fairly accurate, but the view screens and whatnot were all were very, very bland, very uninteresting, just general spacey themed kind of stuff. But there's panels that appear, I think these go either next to the view screen or next to the turbo lift. That would be the navigation sensor in the center of the Helm console. We've got the graphic of the ship. We've got the what do you call that? The dedication plaque. You got red alert labels all over the place. You got alert condition red, alert condition yellow. You got markings that can go in any of the viewers all over the ship. Not to mention 3 brand new, very crisp, clearly taken from the remastered version of the show, markings for the actual view screen. So you've got a Klingon ship. Could be a Romulan ship, depending on what era of TOS we're talking about. You've got Baylock, or rather Baylock's puppet, and a generic green sci-fi planet. These are some nice looking markings. I'm actually impressed. I'm really hoping this makes up for the lack of raised detail on some surfaces. But kinda has me grumpy that because the Helm console has raised detail, there's probably not any decals for it, so that's all going to have to be painted. And painting can tend to look a little sloppier than decals do, so there's going to be a little bit of inconsistency there, which is kind of a drag. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll take a look at the instructions, and maybe there are markings for the center console. We'll see. First page of the instructions. You've got instructions for assembling torso of seated male, seated female, standing short male, standing tall male. And here we have our explanation of which head belongs to whom. Got Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, Chekhov, Sulu, Uhura, and 3 generic characters whose names I don't really recognize. Lieutenant Boma, Lieutenant Latimer, and Yeoman Mayers. They might have been in specific episodes, they might be fan names, or they might have just been made up for the kit. But I don't think it would be too difficult to kind of pretend that this is Yeoman Rand. I don't think the hair is correct, but again, you could probably paint Uhura in Caucasian tones and say that's Yeoman Rand, because at least they've both got kind of the beehive hairdo, the 60s big bouffant hairstyle. Main instructions themselves appear to be just straight up a reprint of the classic instructions from the original issue from the 70s. I don't think I would even really need them, except for keeping the arrangement of the deck plates in the correct orientation, because attaching all of the other sidewall panels are essentially self-explanatory. I am very excited, though, to notice this. This is definitely, that part that I was mentioning is definitely Sulu's sensor scope. That has me really, really hyped. So this, clearly that's indicating this is not just a straight reprint, so there are some slight modifications to it, to the printing. But I'm so excited this has that scope, because I always loved the sound. When you heard that scope whirring into place, that meant that things were about to go down. That always had me super jazzed up whenever I heard that when watching classic TOS. Last section is basic final assembly. Explains where to attach Spock's scope, how to attach the railings, and the assembly of the seats and various other figures. And last page, marking guide. Very, very simple. Each of these instrument panels is basically identical to the last one, though I am noticing that the control console, the Helm and Navigator's console, does have decals for it. So depending on what everything looks like, I may just sand that console smooth rather than trying to apply decals over embossed detail, because that never looks very good. The rest of the markings are all fairly simple, and just gonna take a lot of time, like I always did with all of these little tiny view screens. That always drove me crazy back in the day. I mean, I thought I had that kit finished, save for all those little viewers, for years and years on display, and I just could not bring myself to spend the hours it would take to finish it off, because it just was so boring. And even when I was 11 or 12, I had these big fat sausage fingers, and getting those giant fingers into those little spaces and getting those things aligned correctly was such a pain. Hated it. But anyway, that is that. So it's going to be a while before I have a go at this, because I want to do it right, but I don't have my airbrush here. I'm gonna probably. I wanted to bring it home in my luggage when I go back to Victoria for Christmas. I wanted to bring it back in my luggage, but I think I'm gonna travel light just to carry on, and I don't think an airbrush and compressor would fit in my carry-on, and they probably wouldn't let me do that anyway because my compressor's pretty heavy. So when I get home, I'll probably just dig it out of storage and then ship it back. But even then, it's going to be a little while before the weather can cooperate. I don't have a spray booth or anything here, so it's going to mean back out on the patio like I used to do back in the day. But at least I'll have the means to do this, and I really want to do this because that classic bridge, that circular bridge that was so iconic and legendary that the goddamn U.S. Navy started designing their own bridges based on it, and it was just, I think it was Matt Jeffries, I think was the designer of the classic Enterprise Bridge. It's just what makes sense, and it made so much sense that the goddamn military started using a similar design. It's extraordinary. But it's a really cool looking model for something so retro. I'm really excited to build it. I may do like some basic assembly and not do any painting, or I might just paint the figures because those can be done by hand. But the rest I want to do with an airbrush properly. Because I think this kind of deserves a place on my my new display cabinet, which spent a couple of hours at IKEA on Saturday. Spent another couple of hours tearing my hair out over those goddamned instructions. For someone who knows how to read instructions pretty well, I never have a good time when it comes to building stuff from IKEA. I know that's such a cliche, but both cabinets that I built are bookshelves, whatever you want to call them. I screwed something up both times and had to disassemble half the damn thing. But hey, they're done and they look great and they fit all my transformers just right, and there's plenty of room for more, and I think I'm going to get another one of the wide ones real soon, so I can have like a consistent uniform display across that entire wall. But that said, yeah, I'm probably going to do some basic assembly of this just today or tomorrow. Maybe do a quick and dirty build, as I used to like to say. No paint, and do a quick build-up review of it before I do paint it, and might get that up in a few days, depending on what I'm doing this weekend. So that's pretty much all there is to say. Thanks everyone out there for watching, and happy modeling.